The boy dropped a coin from the top of the tower, and it landed perfectly into the ventilation duct, bouncing a few times before getting stuck. As the fan blades continued to spin, the coin was shot out at high speed, piercing the gas pipe. A large amount of leaking gas slowly seeped into the restaurant, but the dancing crowd inside remained completely unaware. At this moment, when a waiter opened a champagne bottle, the cork hit the crystal chandelier on the ceiling. As the pendant fell, the glass floor was also cracked, and with the dancing and stomping of the crowd, the cracks beneath their feet began to spread rapidly. Even the screws of the supporting brackets below started to fly off. Alice in the pool seemed to sense something was amiss, but before she could react, the glass floor suddenly shattered. The receptionist downstairs was still leisurely enjoying music, when suddenly, individuals began falling around like dumplings. Meanwhile, Alice's boyfriend was on a piece of shattered glass, and Alice persistently called out, extending her hand to rescue him, but she couldn't quite reach. Meanwhile, the individuals in the restaurant started to panic and hurriedly flee. A woman, unfortunately, collided with the chef, who was carrying a steaming hot pot, and was immediately engulfed in flames. She screamed in agony as she ran. Upon coming into contact with the leaking gas, the entire room exploded instantaneously. Fortunately, Alice managed to hide beneath the bar counter and narrowly avoided the imminent danger. At this moment, a waiter urgently shouted for everyone to escape through the stairs. Just as Alice was preparing to move, she was pushed backward by the panicked crowd, desperately trying to flee. The boy who had been tossing the coin shoved aside an elderly man beside him and rushed down the stairs first. Others weren't as fortunate. As everyone swarmed towards the stairway, the wall unexpectedly collapsed. The waiter beside him advised him to escape from the elevator, but it was already crowded. Alice tried to squeeze in, but an old man pushed her to the ground. The waiter informed him that the elevator was severely overloaded, yet the old man insisted on forcing his way in, resulting in him getting stuck in the doorway. Suddenly, the pulley above the elevator fell, crushing half of the old man's body. The remaining people who hadn't escaped all moved towards the smoke-free area. As they tried to avoid, this caused the restaurant to become unevenly stressed, and soon the wall cracked, causing everyone to slide with inertia towards one side of the glass wall. The woman held her breath and pressed against the glass, not daring to move. She thought she could escape this way, but unexpectedly, a coin broke the silence. The coin fell from the chandelier and landed on the piano. As soon as the coin stopped moving, the piano lid suddenly closed, and the entire piano slid quickly, crashing towards the woman. The boy who had just run out didn't even have time to be happy before he was crushed by the piano. Immediately afterward, half of the restaurant building collapsed completely. Alice, standing in the building, despairingly looked at the ring on her hand. She never expected that on the day her boyfriend proposed, such a tragedy would happen. Just then, a small black boy drilled out of a box not far away. Without a second thought, Alice risked her life to pull the boy out. Just as she was about to take her and him away, the building still collapsed. Fortunately, the ring her boyfriend gave her got stuck between two steel wires, preventing her from falling, but it was difficult to support the weight of two people. Soon the flesh on her fingers was completely scraped off by the ring. Kelly suddenly woke up in class. It turned out this was just a dream she had been having for several months, and Alice was her grandmother. It seemed this nightmare was no coincidence. To clarify the truth of the matter, Kelly drove home. After briefly greeting her father, she asked where the photos her mother had left behind were. Her father curiously asked her why she wanted the photos. Kelly said she just wanted to know more about her grandmother. Hearing this, her father became a little uncomfortable, because since his divorce from her mother, he had thrown away everything related to Kelly's mother. Just then, her stepbrother Charlie needed to go to their uncle's house. Thinking that she might find something about her grandmother there, Kelly drove with him. Seeing his niece arrive, the uncle happily hugged her. After a few warm greetings, Kelly asked about her grandmother. The uncle was immediately displeased because in his view, his mother was crazy. Since his father died, his mother had locked them in the house and wouldn't let them go out, possibly due to fears of accidental death. When he had children, she even sent him letters filled with warnings and photos of various corpses. To avoid his mother's harassment, they eventually had no choice but to pack up and leave home. Afterward, the uncle also warned her to stay away from that woman for her own safety. But the more the uncle insisted, the stronger Kelly's curiosity became, so she told her aunt about the nightmares she had been suffering from lately. The kind-hearted aunt told him the location of the letter. Kelly found a letter in a cardboard box. Inside was a composite photo of her grandmother and grandfather. Based on the address on the envelope, She came to her grandmother's residence. The place was desolate, and a sign forbidding entry was hung on the door. Kelly tried to contact her grandmother through the intercom at the door. Her grandmother told him to empty all the items on his person. After Kelly placed the items in the box at the entrance, the main gate slowly opened. Sharp wooden stakes and barbed wire were placed on both sides of the road, and various pots and pans were hung beside them. Even the outside of the house was covered with spikes. The grandmother was very cautious. Only after confirming things repeatedly did she open the door. After entering the house, Kelly immediately explained her intention. The grandmother told him that all this was a curse from the god of death, and that she had foreknowledge of the impending danger. At the time of the boyfriend's proposal, she did not feel a trace of joy, but instead felt very scared. To prevent the tragedy from happening, she stopped the boy from throwing the coin down. Then she went to the restaurant and covered the chef's wok. Seeing the glass floor about to break, she forcefully picked up a phone, shouting for everyone to leave immediately. With her commotion, she successfully prevented the tragedy from happening and saved people who should not have been saved. Afterward, the restaurant closed and publicly announced that it needed renovation, but it has never reopened since. And now, Kelly is repeatedly having that same nightmare, and she immediately realized something was wrong. It might be because they disrupted the god of death's plan, causing the god of death to once again target their family. And the reason her grandmother had kept herself locked up for so many years was to prevent the god of death's revenge. Then the grandmother prepared to have her stay and study the research paper she had poured her life into. But Kelly found it too absurd and ran out under the pretext of not feeling well. Her grandmother tried to chase after her, but stopped right at the doorway. At this time, a strange wind started blowing outside, and the bottles and jars at the door began to sway. She knew the god of death was still waiting for her outside the door, but to prevent the family from suffering the curse again, she gathered up her courage and ran out, handing the research paper to Kelly and telling her that it was the family's lifesaver. Then she told her to get far away from her, as she wanted to prove that the god of death was nearby. Subsequently, Kelly and her family buried her grandmother. Everyone else thought her grandmother's death was an accident, but Kelly knew that the god of death's revenge had just begun. Returning home, she began to read the notebook. The first page was about the coin from that year, and the following content described all sorts of potential dangers and deaths. Turning further, the scene was exactly the same as the party her uncle's family was currently holding. This couldn't help but make Kelly nervous, and she immediately drove to her uncle's house. On the way, she called Charlie, but they were all playing at the uncle's house and no one answered the phone. She saw that the edge of the trampoline was about to tear. There were also spikes placed underneath the trampoline. If anyone fell off, they would surely be pierced by the spikes. Fortunately, their mother discovered the danger in time and quickly shouted for them to stop and took the spikes away. She thought the danger was resolved just like that, but unexpectedly, the aunt accidentally knocked over a bottle of wine nearby. When the wine bottle fell, it activated an air pump. The inflated hose began to wiggle. It coincidentally hit the tools leaning against the wall. At the same time, Kelly also arrived in time. Seeing that everyone was happily having a party and no danger had occurred, she finally let go of her hanging heart. Suddenly, the trampoline instantly broke. The building blocks that were hit smashed a glass cup. The uncle happened to step on the broken glass and the spikes behind him tipped over, which coincidentally started the lawn. After handling the uncle's funeral, Kelly returned and continued to study the notebook. She found that the people the grandmother had saved were all dying in a continuous sequence, and the grandmother should have died 20 years ago. She had single-handedly delayed it until now. If the grandmother had died back then, there would be no descendants like them, so the curse would continue to extend in their family. According to the prediction, the uncle was the first victim because he was the oldest in the family. If the deduction was correct, the next one should be the uncle's eldest son, Alex, followed by Julia and Robert, and finally his mother and himself. But no one believed her, thinking it was just an accident. This day, Alex finished a day of work and prepared to clean up the store's hygiene. He first turned on the ceiling fan, then turned on the music to relax his mind. The sound of the music vibrated a pen holder on the table. It rolled over and hit a cup nearby. Alex was startled by the sound and slid the chair over to check. The chair hit the alcohol on the floor. Just as Alex squatted down to pick up the glass shards, the iron chain on the ceiling suddenly fell. It happened to get stuck in Alex's nose ring, and the other end of the chain was hooked onto the rotating ceiling fan. As the ceiling fan rotated, the chain wrapped around it shortened little by little. Alex started to panic, but the more anxious he was, the less he could unlock it. He tried to step onto a higher cabinet, but ended up hitting a desk lamp, instantly igniting the alcohol on the floor. Seeing the fire getting bigger and bigger, he stood on a glass cabinet to buy himself more time. At the same time, Kelly had been unable to contact Alex all last night, so she decided to drive with Charlie to find him. Unexpectedly, this guy suddenly jumped out in front of the car. Kelly couldn't believe her eyes. He was actually able to appear in front of her alive and jumping around. Did the god of death let him off? Although Alex was fine now, Kelly still advised him to be careful. For example, the electric saw leaning against the tree, the soccer ball under the child's feet on the roadside, the leaf blower in the hands of the landscaper. Any object around them could become a tool for the god of death to kill people. But Alex didn't take it seriously, and even said that she shouldn't always be a fanatic. Where would there be so much danger? As soon as he finished speaking, he was almost hit by a passing truck. Subsequently, a yellow garbage truck drove up. Kelly advised him to stay away from the garbage truck. But not only did he not listen, he provocatively licked the garbage truck with his tongue. Until the garbage truck drove away, Alex was still fine. At this time, his sister Julia came out of the house, preparing to go for a run. Just as she passed the garbage truck, a flying soccer ball on the roadside knocked her into the trash can. Immediately afterward, she was lifted by the garbage truck and dumped into the truck compartment. The three of them hurried to chase and shouted loudly for the driver to stop. But the driver was wearing headphones and watching short videos at the moment, completely unable to hear the outside sound. Kelly, who rushed out first, desperately climbed onto the garbage truck. At this moment, the garbage compactor began to slowly compress. If she couldn't get out, she would be crushed alive. Just as Kelly was about to pull her out, Alex suddenly ran in front of the truck. Seeing this, the driver quickly slammed on the brakes. Due to inertia, Julia fell down again. After this incident, everyone began to believe in the existence of the god of death. But why wasn't it Alex who had the accident? At this moment, the crying aunt spoke the truth. It turned out that Alex was not her biological child, but was born to someone else during her affair when she was young. This meant that Kelly's predicted sequence was correct, and it should be Robert's turn next. Robert remembered that Kelly seemed to have said that the notebook recorded a survivor. Hearing this, Kelly immediately flipped through the notebook to search. Sure enough, there was a person nicknamed JB. Maybe this person could help everyone unravel the mystery. But the notebook did not mention how to find this person. At this time, her mother suddenly remembered that the grandmother had mentioned this person when writing to her before. She was a doctor in a hospital. They immediately rushed to the hospital and met the black old man named JB. And this old man was the boy the grandmother had saved back then. The old man told them that there were only two ways to escape the god of death. One was to kill someone else, thereby gaining the time they had left. The other was to die, because only by dying could one be removed from the god of death's list. There was also a special method. There was a person named Coleman back then, who was also chosen by the god of death. Just as he was on the verge of death, he was rescued by his doctor. But this method was not safe. If he was not rescued, he would surely die. Now that his good friend Alice was dead, he should also retire and enjoy the little time he had left. After the old man left, Alex and Robert also disappeared without a trace. It turned out that they had listened to the old man and secretly ran out, preparing to find a substitute, according to the method he mentioned. At this time, the cry of a baby came from nearby. Looking at the newborn baby, the two finally gave up their thought. It seemed they could only use the other method, which was to have Robert, who was allergic to peanuts, eat peanuts. When he was about to die from the allergy, they would rush to save him back. Subsequently, Alex came to a vending machine, ready to buy a bag of peanuts. But when he selected the product and it was being dispensed, it just happened to get stuck. Alex furiously punched the cabinet door, breaking it, but the peanuts still didn't fall down. There was no other way. He could only drill to the side of the vending machine, trying to shake the peanuts out. After a lot of shaking, the peanuts were finally shaken down by him. Immediately afterward, the two walked into the MRI room. After Alex threw the peanuts to Robert, he turned around and went out to look for something. When the door was closed, it vibrated a record board hanging on the wall. The board happened to start the MRI machine. Alex thoughtfully pushed back a wheelchair. He asked Robert to sit in the wheelchair and eat the peanuts. Once his allergy flared up, he could be pushed to the emergency room immediately. Hearing Alex's plan, even Robert felt that he could escape the god of death. Subsequently, Robert ate the peanuts. Soon he developed symptoms of discomfort all over his body and difficulty breathing. He wanted to inject the anti-allergy shot, but Alex wouldn't let him, saying that he had to wait until he was close to death for the effect to be maximized. Just then, the MRI machine also started running. Alex's earrings and nose ring were instantly sucked onto the machine. As the magnetic force of the MRI became stronger and stronger, the wheelchair behind him was also sucked into the machine along with him. Robert struggled to crawl to Alex's side, grabbed the syringe, and quickly gave himself a shot. At this time, the metal objects in the operating room were also affected by the strong magnet. The doctor hurried to the MRI room to check the situation. The moment he opened the door, the metal objects on his body almost took his life. Just as he was about to celebrate his escape, the spring of the vending machine at the door suddenly popped out, directly piercing his head. With this, the remaining people all began to feel fear. Charlie even felt that there was no safe place left. This sentence suddenly made Kelly think of the old house where her grandmother had lived for decades. The reason her grandmother died was because she left the room. Now only that place was the safest. When they drove to the door of the old house, all the lights automatically turned on, as if the god of death was welcoming their arrival. At this time, another strange wind blew, and the wind chimes at the door rang. Kelly knew that the god of death was nearby. To get into the house before the god of death, she stepped on the accelerator to the floor, crashing open the iron gate and rushing into the yard. After slamming on the brakes in front of the house, inertia caused a falling object to smash Kelly's seatbelt buckle. Just as Kelly was about to get out of the car, she found that the seatbelt couldn't be unbuckled, so she told her mother and Charlie to go into the house first. At the same time, the fireworks on the roof fell into the gutter and ignited the tree leaves. The moment her mother opened the door, a spark drifted into the house, and the flower pot rope that was about to break snapped at this time. The falling flower pot smashed and leaked the gas pipe. In an instant, the house exploded violently. The car was first flipped into the pool by the impact of the explosion. Kelly was trapped underwater, struggling violently. Charlie was also pinned under a piece of wood, unable to move. The electric pole next to them could fall at any time, which would take Charlie's life. At this critical moment, her seriously injured mother rushed over in time. After prying open the pinned wood, she told her to hurry up and save Kelly. But as soon as she finished speaking, she was smashed to death by the falling electric pole. Without a second thought, Charlie hurriedly ran into the car and rescued Kelly, who was already drowning and suffocating. Under Charlie's rescue, Kelly woke up. Both of them were rescued after being in a state of near death, which also counted as escaping a disaster. Not long after, Charlie held a wedding. When Kelly was once again adjusting his boutonniere, she accidentally pricked her finger. A kind of ominous premonition immediately came to her mind. At the same time, an old woman was preparing to buy some snacks. Just as she was about to take out the coin she had picked up before, she accidentally dropped it, and it rolled out. It happened to get stuck between the tracks of a switching railway. At the wedding, the bride's father came up to Kelly and praised his son-in-law as a hero. If Charlie hadn't saved her, she would have drowned a long time ago. But strictly speaking, she was not resurrected from the dead because she was only in a state of coma at the time and her heart had not stopped beating. Hearing this, Kelly felt a sense of inexplicable uneasiness. Immediately afterward, the wind chimes at the door rang again, and a speeding train at this time suddenly derailed when passing the switch and rushed toward the two people. Seeing the crash, the two turned and ran. Fortunately, the two ran fast enough. Just as Kelly fell, the train also stopped. Charlie helped Kelly up, celebrating that they had once again escaped from death, but the result